The homecoming. Along with the VE Day celebrations came great expectations for the return of the family uncles, mother's brothers, brothers-in-law, and my father's cousins. This did not happen as quickly as we had hoped. The Sunday gathering at Grandma Emma Louise's home took on a whole new aspect with the arrival of these new men, as they were to me and to most of my cousins, for we were far too young to remember them before they departed for the war. They had a lot of catching up to do, and after a lunchtime session at the Stoke Inn, they would return along the chapel lane with bottles of George's beer protruding from the jacket pockets of their ill-fitting demob suits. It was now about 3 p.m, and aunts and cousins would be arriving for afternoon tea. While the uncles sat down for a belated hot meal, which Gran had cooked on the ancient coal-fired range, the cousins would be entertained by Fred, the youngest of the uncles, who was only a few years older than some of his nephews and nieces. Fred loved showing off his cycling tricks, riding around sitting backwards on the handlebars or standing on the saddle. How he would have loved a BMX bike. We never tired of these entertainments, the climax of which was always his bucket of water trick. Fred would fill a galvanized metal bucket nearly to the rim and slowly spin around until the bucket was almost level with his head, the water held in by centrifugal force. Fred would go very red in the face with his exertions and wobbly because he was giddy. The skill was to get the bucket gently back on the ground without mishap. Only once did he come to grief, when he got too near the cottage wall with which the bucket collided, spilling its contents over most of us, but mainly Fred. Indoors the table was cleared and the uncles retreated into the dark corners of the room with their beer glasses and cigarettes. Tea would be laid out on the large table covered with oilcloth. Egg sandwiches would be piled on white plates, there being no shortage of eggs from Emma Louise's many chickens, along with jam sandwiches, more home produce, and a large fruit cake baked in the ancient cast-iron range, where a collection of soot-blackened kettles would be simmering on the back of the fire, the only source of hot water in the house. Tea was served in white mugs, but my mother was a bit sniffy about this, as she had become used to bone china cups. The warmth of the room was accentuated by the only light, a 2-wick oil lamp with a double-glass chimney that was set in the centre of the table. From time to time, one of the uncles would emerge from the warm darkness of the corner of the room, and placing a Woodbine or Cravenay cigarette in his mouth, lean over us feeding cousins to light it from the top of the glass chimney. His face, flushed with a good dinner and bottled beer, would be bathed in a ruddy glow as he drew on the cigarette. Perhaps the uncles reminisced about their service, but we didn't hear very much, not from them anyway. Apart from Fred, they had all seen service, and 2 had not returned. We were very aware of this, and it must have been very difficult for our 2 widowed aunts. But both later married, and in time there were even more cousins. Sometimes Gran would give us a song. She was very good at music hall songs, and even today I remember the words of those sad and happy numbers. Gran was often asked to sing to the piano at the local Stoke Inn. My mother did not approve. She had moved on and thought her own mother was not genteel enough. Another entertainment was to bring Jacko, the African grey parrot, from his cage in the scullery to perform for us. Jacko had been smuggled back from Egypt at the end of the war in a perforated biscuit tin. Pets had been strictly forbidden, but George had managed to conceal Jacko without detection even on a crowded troop ship. No mean feat. A poker would be got from the hearth, the cage door would be opened, and Jacko would step onto the poker like a seasoned entertainer about to make his entrance into the limelight. He would squawk his repertoire of phrases, not all of them very nice, some indeed very barrack room, which was not surprising. Then came a show-stopping finale to Knees Up Mother Brown, sung by Gran and a chorus of cousins. He would then be whisked back into his cage before he bit someone. Nearly all of us had received a nasty bite from this devious bird. Jacko was still in the family in the late 1990s. During all the hubbub of tea, Grandfather George would be sitting quietly before the fire, sipping his tea and saying little. A veteran of the First World War, he must have been relieved that all his sons had survived. This brief and for me welcome interlude was soon over. We would have to be back home in the next village in time to get ready for chapel at 6:15 p.m. What a treadmill Sunday was, and how I envied my cousins whose parents were not quite so devout. These large Sunday gatherings did not continue for long. 2 of the uncles were professional servicemen and soon got new postings. The other uncles soon found civilian jobs, which really did signal that the war was over.